Good morning, everyone. This is Phil Pugh, Director of Emergency Management here at Memorial Hospital in Belleville and Coalition Chair. We're going to go ahead and get started with our monthly coalition meeting. To everybody, I would like to start off by saying Happy New Year. We're bringing in 2023 on a warm note, which I'm not upset about after our big cold spell we had, the polar vortex that made it through the majority of the country and froze a lot of pipes out there. So I used to be stationed up in Minot, North Dakota, and we would call that a Tuesday. Um, but still, it was a good reminder why I'm never going back to North Dakota. So, good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. This is our standard agenda. And you know what I am missing with this new slide deck that I'm sure some of you guys realize we had? I did not include a call down sheet. So let me go and pull that up as well. Give me one quick second. Every time somebody tries to do something new around here, they want to pull us back. When I say they, I'm talking about me specifically. So let's go ahead and start with our roll call, and we will start with our hospitals. And with our hospitals, we'll start with Anderson Hospital.
Eric Brandmeyer is here for Anderson and Community Hospital Staunton.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, Alton Memorial.
Good morning, this is Aaron Rogers, Alton Memorial Hospital.
Gotcha, Aaron. Thank you. Boyd. Anyone from Thomas H. Boyd? Nancy? No? Okay, Carlinville Area Hospital.
Good morning, James Kelly here.
Gotcha. James over at, we already got Staunton. So Fayette, I know Tina's on somewhere. I see your pretty picture. Gotcha. Thanks, Tina. Gateway.
Hi, good morning. This is Danielle from Gateway.
Thank you. Danielle, is Rick going to be in today, or is he just taking time
He's
off?
out of the office today. I'm going to take good notes for him.
Okay. HSHS Partners, we'll start with Holy Family.
Cindy is here from Holy Family.
Gotcha, Cindy. Thank you. St. East.
Brad is here with St. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Brad. St. Joseph's Breeze.
Stacy's here for Breeze.
Thank you, Stacy. And Highland.
Patrick Small for Highland.
Gotcha, Patrick. Jersey Community.
This is Nick Albrecht with Jersey Community.
Thank you, Nick. For Memorial Hospital, Belleville and Shiloh, you got myself, Lee French, Eric Perham, and Mike Gilbert on. I'm not sure if Scott is on this morning. Scott, are you on?
Sergeant Wright is here from Scott Air Force Base Medical Clinic.
Oh, not Scott Air Force Base Clinic, Scott Klosterman, but we do have a spot for you guys, and we'll get you counted. Thank you.
Morning, Phil.
All right, gotcha, Scott. Thank you. The other Scott. So, all right. How about Chester? Georgia said she wasn't showing up to work today. She did not call off me she was not here last month, but she did call me about the presentation and said, "Hey, why isn't it on YouTube page?" And I was like, "I forgot," and I uploaded it. So, thanks, Georgia, for that. Hopefully, she'll be back in the office. How about OSF St. Anthony's? Redbud? No, Tara's out of office. Anyone from Redbud? Who's here? Oh, Tara, I thought I got your out of office, so I see you on now. Thank you, Tara. Gotcha. Sparta? Thought I saw Dan on. No one from Sparta. And Touche.
Hi, Amy Francic.
Gotcha, Amy. Thank you. We'll go over to our health departments, starting with Bond County. About Calhoun. On Calhoun, Clinton County. Eastside Health.
Hi, it's Charmaine Rainey with Eastside Health District.
Gotcha, Charmaine. Thank you. Fayette. Greene County.
Molly's here.
Thank you, Molly. Jersey. Macoupin County. Someone just jumped off mute. Was that anybody from Macoupin? Yeah, it's Derek, though. Oh, that's you, Derek. Okay, I see you. You're very weak but readable, so I'm not sure if your mic's covered. Madison County.
Michelle's here.
Gotcha, Michelle. Thank you. Monroe.
Vicky's here.
Gotcha, Vicky. Randolph County.
Deborah's here.
Thank you, Deborah. And St. Clair County.
Good morning, Kara's here.
Gotcha, Kara. And I do see Wendy from Bond County. Gotcha, Wendy. Thank you. We'll start off with, we'll finish up with our other community partners and state representatives. We'll start with our REMSC. Greg, are you on?
I'm on, Phil.
Gotcha, Greg. Thank you. Emergency Response Coordinator, Beth.
Good morning. Beth is here.
Thank you. Any of our BJC partners on this morning?
Phil, Sean is on. Thank you.
Gotcha, Sean. Thank you very much. And I did just get a note from, who's that from Jersey? Okay, Jersey. All right. Gotcha, Julie. Thank you. Any of our EMA partners on?
Morning, Phil. This is Sam, St. Clair
Gotcha,
County EMA.
Sam. Thank you.
Hey, Phil, Tim McFall, Scott.
Gotcha. Tim. Some of our EMS agencies, we'll start with, is MedStar on? Good, John's taking some time off. How about Abbott? Anyone from Abbott?
Hi, Leslie from Abbott is here today.
Thank you, Leslie. SLU? Any other of our Scott Air Force Base partners? Who was that from the Med Group earlier?
Hi, Sergeant Wright, Mountain Clinic.
Okay, Sergeant Wright, thank you. And any of our STARS partners? I know we've had some changes recently. Nope, okay. All right, anyone did not get called and wants to get credit and recorded? Once, twice, thrice. I do see Carla from Monroe County EMS is in as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know we got Kim Lampert and Jeremy Gosheimer on as well. All right, from EMS. All right, we'll start with our standard agenda. We'll start with IDPH. Greg.
Good morning, everyone. Just kind of a regional update for hospitals and EMS. We do currently have 3 hospitals that are on peak census this morning. Looked like we had 39 ED boarders. We only had 6 ICU beds. So I think communication, the resource hospitals with their EMS providers is essential. Also with their associate and participating hospitals that belong to their system, make sure, you know, everybody is doing okay and we are getting patients into ED rooms without too much issue. I'm not really sure what's going on. All of a sudden, it seemed like we quieted down with the holidays a little bit and then today. So if anybody has any insight, my assumption it's just a combination of everything, staffing, beds open, discharges, people sick, respiratory, but if anybody does have any insight, we do like to share that up to Springfield if they're seeing something particular in our region. Also, I'm not sure if people saw that there was a Honeywell Tapper cartridges mandatory stop use on a couple of their cartridges. Phil, do you know if we use the Honeywell? Did you get that notification?
I don't think I got it. Maybe I didn't miss it, but I'll toss over to Lee. Did you get anything, Lee?
No, I'm not aware of this.
Okay. I'll go ahead and forward that to you both, and then maybe you can forward it out to the hospitals. I wasn't sure what we used, but I did see that come across in an email to me, so I'll forward that to you guys. And other than that, that's all I have right now, unless somebody has any questions.
Tina has a question. Go ahead, Tina.
Greg, my question is this. I know Ashley sent an update out for the EM resource to update that for like twice a day now. And for, I'm just talking about our hospital. I think it's confusing because before in the EM resource, there would be a special like banner that would let you know to report at by 10 a.m. or 6 p.m. or something. And I'm totally confused at this point in time, other than the normal reporting time we have to do every 24 hours. What do we do?
So you're updating that second time your bed numbers again, and I'd have to pull that email or that siren notification out, but you're still going to just update it again at some time in the evening time. And Phil, did we as a region decide on a specific time? I know you like it by 7 a.m. in the morning, right?
Yeah, we didn't decide. I'm trying to pull the notification up, and I thought it was only 3 attributes. I thought it was ED borders. I'm just gonna go and double check it. I just can't recall it off the top of my head. But I thought there were only 3 other attributes. I didn't think you had to do your entire
right
availability as well. But yeah, and I thought that there was a time in there for 1800, but I'm just trying to pull my note up. I know when I thought when I forwarded it out that it stated, I just can't call it off the top of my head. But your question though, too, Tina, is that the banner and the just the standard, because you could turn that on and off. Yeah, I don't think Dan, and I know Dan is retired as of the 31st. So I don't think when they built that, they built in the notification for it to go out the same way as you're discussing, Tina. I don't know if that's something, I mean, we could potentially do a persistent reminder as, to help catch that. I don't know how.
The only thing with that, Phil, is that then you're having to look at 2 different things. If you also want to, if you just use the key access again in the evening time, update those 3 or 4 and save it, it'll save even the morning numbers, and then the updated new numbers will show in there as well. And then it's all in one place, so that if somebody does want to look at it in the evening to get the whole visual like the other beds too, they're only looking in one place.
Indeed, but I think Tina just was really concerned, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, about just being notified of it and seeing the banner that it needs to be done. Is that right?
That's right. It used to be, and then it had the times in it that they wanted you to report it. And I know there was a change when Ashley said, I don't think we have to do the pediatric numbers now, but just report it twice. So we always report it after midnight sometime as our normal practice. And then I think we were supposed to do it at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. But then I got confused with the last email. Is it we do it sometime after midnight and then repeat it again by 10 a.m. or 6 p.m.? That's what the banner helped my staff, is what they're saying also.
Right. So we had a discussion on it. The problem in the evening time is that different regions kind of wanted it to be done at different times that was convenient for them. So the last I heard from Ashley was that sometime in the evening is when it should be updated, but leave it up to the region as the time they want to do that. So I don't know, Phil, if you can set up a notification to go out to update those bed numbers.
I'll check, and me and Leo just kind of discuss it. I'm not sure how the rest of the hospitals, if they want something like that, a persistent banner that would stay there, because I think we can make it somewhat persistent until, and end it when the state says they don't want to see it anymore. So
Yeah, we can do that. We can set just a start and end time.
Thank you very much.
thanks, Tina.
Phil, I
Any-
have something. This
Okay,
is
go
Eric.
ahead. Go ahead, Eric.
Hey, Greg, I'm sorry, I've been away from my computer, so I'm unaware of who we are one of the hospitals who's on peak census, Anderson Hospital. Who are the other hospitals that are on peak census?
East and Memorial, right?
Yep, it should be. Yeah, I'm going back into EM Resource now. Everything closed down.
Yeah, I've got it open. That's who it is actively at this time.
Okay, well, this is a great opportunity for me to encourage EMS systems to notify the other resource hospitals when one of their hospitals, if they're aware of it, goes on peak census, because I don't want to adjust my halo, but when we go on peak census at Anderson, I send a notification to all the resource EMS coordinators in the region and encourage them to let their EMS know. As well as naturally, I notify the providers within the Anderson Hospital system. And the sole intent of that is just for better patient outcomes. That's it. I mean, we all know that ultimately something, that hospitals kind of hesitate to go on this because, of course, it of course costs them business. But ultimately, the right thing to do is to let the patients know and EMS know, so that the patient and EMS can make a good informed choice about where they're transporting these patients. Because I think load leveling, we saw this from many from earlier in the years of the pandemic about hospital load leveling does make a difference when it comes to patient searches. I'll shut up now.
But I'm not sure if everybody caught some of that. There was a little bit of feedback in the background. Greg, did you have any additions to that? I know this has been a topic of discussion on the EMS, at least over the past month. The EMS calls on Wednesdays. Did you want to add anything to what Eric is?
Eric, if certainly if you want to send exactly what you feel would be a great thing, I can send out to the EMS coordinators, asking them to follow that. I don't think they're all on this call right now, but I can send out what you feel would be a good practice and send it out to them and see if we can't get that followed by all 5 of them.
Well, the thing I'll say, Greg, is that exactly what I send to our EMS services is the same thing I send, and it's a text. I don't send email because I'm well aware that not all of us get emails on my phones. I purposely have never got Anderson Hospital email on my phone because I like to walk away from work eventually. But anybody can contact me by sending me a text message. And that's exactly what I do because I feel it's far more immediate. Everybody always has their phones with them. And what I send to our EMS services is exactly what the same wording and everything, pretty much what I just said, that I send to the EMS coordinators. And I'll be happy to include you when I send those notifications out to the EMS coordinators. So ultimately, what I would suggest is that all the EMS coordinators should be aware when we go on peak census, and I would just love the opportunity to be notified certainly when other resource hospitals and other certainly associate hospitals are on peak census as well. I just think it's the best thing for our patients and the best thing for our region as a whole.
Okay, let me reach out to the other ones, find out what they best would like to be text on, because some people have work phones and then they don't even look at their work phone, whether they want to use their personal phone or their work phone to get those texts. And I'll try to get that together, and I can then send out all of those to the 5 coordinators and request that be done, and see what the feedback is from them.
I appreciate it.
And if I can add just one thing to it, just so for folks, so they aren't confused, especially that don't delve into EM resource a ton. When we do go on an when we do have a hospital that goes on peak census, just so for everyone's situational awareness, it doesn't mean that they're on bypass or diversion, whichever colloquial term you'd like to use. It is truly showing that the hospital itself is, under heavy load, and that may not be directly reflective in ED border status or anything else. So it could be a multitude of reasons as to why they are on peak census. We did have one hospital, my hospital, Shiloh, going on diversion or bypass during the cold weather for a pretty crazy situation at the time that was due to the cold weather. So just keep in mind that it's not a diversionary tactic, it's situational awareness. I agree with what Eric is saying. We want the best care for the patients, and we want to keep folks situationally aware as best as possible. I do know we do have some folks that are online that may be EMS agencies that have access. John Nowak is like our primary individual from the EMS agency that has like EM resource access and loves to get those notifications because it keeps him situationally aware. So what I would ask that, because this doesn't happen that often, but when we do go on peak census, and as I'm looking in EM resource now, and I look at Shiloh being on peak census, we don't have any commentary onto why. And I think that is also important to put on there. There are instances where we're on I don't want to call it like a soft bypass, but where you may have a CT that's down or something and that's the only CT you have at your hospital. And your EMS folks need to know that type of information. So a small bit of verbiage there would do wonders. Would do wonders for folks when they don't have full situational awareness. They do know that you're under some form of surge in the hospital, whether that's on the inpatient side or your ED is just fully slammed. But that commentary would be very beneficial. So if you could, when you do go on peak census, and I'll be talking to my house soups to make sure that they add some commentary there. It doesn't have to be fully descriptive, but give some insight as to why you're on peak census would be great. So I don't know if anybody has any objection to that, but I do believe that that helps out the other resource hospitals and associate hospitals across the region, and being able to relay that type of information to EMS. Any more questions?
Hey, Phil, this is Rachel.
Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, good morning. Just in regards to the peak census, so that I'm clear and everyone else is, in addition to going on peak census, one, that is a step before you would go on a bypass or diversion due to capacity. Obviously, when the emergency rules came out with COVID, they said, hey, that's not going to happen anymore. But also, before you go on peak census, you're supposed to make steps to alleviate that. You have to essentially tell IDPH what your plan is for that. And isn't one of those requirements to cancel elective procedures, or am I mistaken in that?
I'll let Greg answer that since that's a state kind of question.
Okay. So I know not to prolong all of this over this. So to Phil's first thing, the CT down, those kinds of things, you would go into EM resource, you go in, and if you do change your status, you go open, and what you're actually going to do is basically go open to open, and you'd put that comment that the CT is down. That should send an alarm to everybody who has set those alarms that there's been a status change. So open. You don't want to go on peak census for CT down, but you still want EMS notified, and that will send that alarm. So I think the coordinators need to discuss whether we want to also send that information out by text, but we'll follow up on that after this call. The other thing that Rachel is talking about, it is still not allowed to go on diversion without calling the state first. So in the instance of Shiloh, they did go on bypass because there was an issue of being able to provide proper patient care at that time because of what they had going on. So they were allowed to go on diversion until that was created. But that is something that the state has to allow right now. You can't automatically go on diversion. You need to call us. So that emergency rule is still in place, just so everybody knows. So yes, you should be going on peak census before you try to contact us to go on diversion. You should be putting your peak census plan into place. I'll remind everybody a peak census plan is required by the state for every hospital to have. You should be looking at contacting physicians to discharge, calling additional staff in, canceling surgeries if we're talking about diversion, those kinds of things. None of it is required that you know, like canceling surgeries, that unless you're really at that breaking point kind of thing, but it's something to be considered and something you should be addressing prior to calling us if you can go on diversion. Then typically right now, while these emergency rules are still in place, we are, if we feel that yes, that's a reason to go on diversion, we will usually say you can be on diversion 2 hours while you take a breather, 4 hours while you take a breather, get staff called in, those kinds of things. We're not going to allow an open-ended diversion right now as the rules stand. Does that kind of make sense? Because that's the question we're going to ask when you call us to go on diversion. Have you put your peak census in place? Have you notified your C-suite? What are you doing about contacting doctors to get discharge orders? Those kinds of things before we're going to say, yes, it's okay for you to go on a 4-hour diversion while you catch your breath. Does that make sense? Rachel.
Yep, sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Yes, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Hey, Greg, it's Lee. Just to reiterate what you said earlier, and maybe something we need to review in better detail, Phil, is to show everyone how they can alter those alarm settings so that they do get the alerts for status changes. Albeit they do get annoying sometimes, they do provide critical information.
Absolutely. And there is talk of adding an additional status, which is resource limitation. So that may be coming in the future, and that would be like something that you would then use to create an alarm, and it will let them know, hey, I need to look at the comment, oh, CT, cath lab's down, something like that. So, you know, we are looking at getting that added as a choice in those status changes.
That would be awesome. Thanks, Greg. Any last questions for Greg? Okay, we'll move over to our public health departments. Beth?
Good morning, everyone. Just a few things. Health departments know this. I'm assuming the hospitals do too, but we're seeing some spot shortages of Tamiflu. This is nationwide. This is not an official shortage, but there are some areas that are being challenged to source some Tamiflu. So the health departments are checking to see how much they have. There's been some extension of expiration dates. Again, just getting ready in case the Tamiflu shortage expands. The flu and the RSV nationwide are starting to decline a bit. But the hospitalizations due to COVID are increasing again, just a little bit. This is nationwide. As far as variants, in the United States, there is some concern about a variant called XBB.1.5. It's starting to, again, it's regional, but in some parts of the country, it is starting to increase. The models are showing that this may be the prevalent in the next month or two. But we all know about models, and this is all
Beth, I think we lost you. Are you still there?
how's that?
Yep, we got you back. There you go.
Okay. Some people are concerned about what's going on in China. When you have large numbers of cases, then you have a greater chance of variants. There are some variants over there, but the most predominant one is not a huge concern because it's not as transmissible, and it's not as virulent as some of the other variants that we've seen. The only other thing that I had here in my notes to talk about was the federal government has now allowed free rapid tests again. So if you go onto the website, you can get 4 tests per household. And as I'm sure most of you have found, it's always good to have a few at home. And of course, you can always go to a pharmacy or I believe some health departments yet to get tested. So any questions?
Okay, no questions for Beth.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any of our STARS partners on? So they've got some changes and personnel changes over at STARS. All right, so we will move on. Remer, Mike.
We are working on training stuff. We are planning with Scott Air Force Base for the air show in May. Other than that, we're just working on revamping gear and getting some stuff reorganized. But we're constantly doing training. The end of this month, one of our physicians is doing our initial ultrasound training. So we're going to do 2 days of ultrasound training with our EMS docs. So other than that, we're just preparing for a busy first half of the year of training and events that we're helping out with.
All right, thanks, Mike. I don't think we have Dana on for our mental health folks. This is an area we've been talking about, and we really need to shore up just a little bit more. But I will just put a quick plug in for the upcoming CISM courses that you'll see on the events calendar. But they are there. Again, we're looking at responder safety and health and making sure that our providers are taken care of in a lot of these stressful situations. So a lot of that coming up, and hopefully we'll get good feedback on how all that goes in the spring, probably a wrap up in our quarterly meeting. Pediatrics. Eric, are you on? Any last pediatric stuff?
Yeah, so for pediatrics, in December, there was a ESFA pediatric preparedness meeting. And one of the things that kind of resonated throughout the state was transporting the pediatric patients from critical access or, smaller hospitals to actual dedicated children's facilities and lag times and getting those pediatric patients out. Something that we haven't really seen in our region because we have, Cardinal Glen and Children's, which made, getting our pediatric patients to a higher level of care easier. But there has been some stress on the networks, like I said, throughout the state. So that was a major source of concern. And as well as just keep, we had that influenza A outbreak that kind of caught everybody a little bit flat-footed, and that was creating some issues. So that was kind of what the ESF8 meeting was geared towards. Other than that, again, if you are, when it comes to CDAP, BDAP, I know that some of the windows are starting to open up for recertification and having people come on doing inspections. So that was something that was also discussed in the meeting. Outside of that, yeah, this is my last Hope Coalition meeting in this capacity. Hopefully where I go, I'll be chiming in and being a wallflower like some others. But I really appreciate working with everybody and getting to know everyone. And just because as I try to explain to Phil, I'm not leaving. I'm just basically becoming an oarman in somebody else's boat. I don't know if it's definitely nicer boat, but it's just another oarman. And I'll still keep my feet and ties back here as well. So thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Eric. And as Eric talked about, and for those who didn't, or who hopefully everybody should have received my email on it, but Eric is taking a position over at the VA, and his last duty day, so I like to call it, is next Friday. So so we wish Eric well and thank him for all of the positive contributions he's had here at Memorial for our surveys and the like, and working on plans and traditional preparedness stuff and all of his EMS duties for Shiloh. So really appreciate him and all his hard work. He'll be missed, and just so everybody knows, and I will say this, his replacement position was just approved this morning, will probably be posted next week. So if you know great candidates that would like to work in the healthcare hospital preparedness realm and work with regional stuff and paramedic, or need to be a paramedic or RN, because we got a lot of EMS things that we deal with as well. And in that position specifically, we need somebody like that with those credentials as well. So if you got great candidates that are looking for a change, that position will be opening up. Hard to fill a lot of the shoes that we've had in that position. JT has been there, Leanne, and now Eric. All those folks have gone on to do great things with other organizations, some in similar veins, and some outside of that. But again, we appreciate you, Eric, and definitely you're not going too far. He will be on REMERT too, so he'll still be around. All right. All right. Quick grant status update. So our grant has been, as I talked last time, it was approved. Now I'll say unofficially approved because it hadn't been signed by the director of IDPH, but I believe on the 28th or so, like the very last part of last year, was officially signed and got eGram's approval, I think on the 30th of December. So it's official. So for those of you who did have project requests in that were approved project requests, we will be moving forward with those. So please be on the lookout for any information from Lisa Howe from our grants management office here at BJC. Make sure you get that paperwork back in as quick as possible, so it gives you ample time to spend your funds. So great work on the state's behalf, and I told Teresa Tolar that when I got a chance to see her face to face again for the first time in a long time at the National Healthcare Preparedness Coalition Conference. I let her know that all the hard work that she did really paid off this year, because this is the earliest we've received our official signed grant. So thanks to her and the team at IDPH for doing great work there. We will be transitioning from eGrams to, oh man, the new tool escapes me. Greg, if you remember the name of it, shout it out. But we will be moving away from the old tool. So for those of you who've been around a while and used eGrams, we will be moving to a new grants project proposal tool. Hopefully, from what I hear, it's a little easier to use, so that'll be great. A few things that I did want to point out of note with the upcoming grant, and when I say upcoming grant, I'm talking about the BP 5 grant, the FY24 grant. There are two areas that we're looking to upgrade, and we've been looking at these for quite some time. One is a radio upgrade across the region, and the second one is our telemetry set. I'm going to do these in reverse order of the screen. So I'm going to talk about the telemetry set first, and I'd like Eric Brandmeier to jump in after I tap out. I'll tee it up for you, Eric, and if you could kind of give a little more of the specifics to it. But we do have a telemetry set that we use for, I'll use my air quotes, field hospital or just general surge events. We have used it in the past. We did use it several times during COVID. And I think that was probably the first time that we used it in the context in which it was used. So good folks over at St. Elizabeth's did put that to work to great effect and helping out patients because they were busting at the seams and had to relocate folks. So it worked. But as all good things come to an end, it's ending its service life, and some of the upgrades will be discontinued. And I know Eric has talked with the folks. Eric, can you kind of provide just a little more insight as to what type of upgrades and services are going to be no longer and why we can't kind of really just extend the use of it as is?
Absolutely, Phil. So the vendor is Philips. That's who the original device was purchased under. And wow, it makes me think how long we've had this damn thing. What I argued to Phil, or presented to Phil, I argued it, was with being around this region as long as I have, I don't know of a regional asset that has been used more in critical times. I know that Memorial used it before Phil got there when their documenting system crashed. That was under Don Schneider. Those of you who remember him. I know that Brad and his folks have used it over at HSHS. We've used it over at Anderson. I think somewhere along the line, I think Gateway might have used it as well. I don't know if Rick's on there. I think Danielle was. But regardless, it has been used basically outside of its original intent. It was purchased as part of the portable hospital or portable ER, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if we've ever used it for that other than to play with it. But that being said, so we reached out to Philips, recognizing that it is a computer, and all good computers come to an end. And we looked for a couple of options, and we did receive a couple of options. One of them is to update the software. And that was a lot more expensive than what I thought it was going to be. But for whatever cost that was going to be, by the time this grant would come to fruition, the service life on that software update, are you ready for this, would give us about an additional year of service life. So then the other possibility was updating everything. I'm not a computer guy, so I know that was going to be including updating the screens, updating basically the guts of the telemetry. And I know that's not a fancy term, but that's essentially what it was. And that's where you see the $150,000 price tag. I do know that I think I remember, I don't want to say I know because that was so long ago and I've slept since then, but back when the region purchased this, when Mr. Schneider was here, I mean, I believe it was more than the $150,000 price tag you see there. Matter of fact, I think it was quite a bit more. So is it a bargain? Oh, I don't know if it's a bargain. I mean, I guess another thing that we could do is look into what it would cost to buy a whole new portable telemetry. I have a feeling it would possibly be more than 150,000, considering that's what, 12 units, I think, that we receive of this portable telemetry, and that's pretty robust. Matter of fact, we're using it right now because one of the reasons we can't get our nose out of peak census is we just do not have enough telemetry beds and critical care beds to satisfy this surge. And I know that's what a number of the other hospitals have used it through as well throughout this pandemic we're enjoying. So that's pretty much the best I have. So the options were to upgrade the software and get another year out of it, or what you see there, the $150,000 roughly, was basically a whole new upgrade. Wouldn't say it's new, but it would be new because all the guts of it would be replaced.
Thank you, Eric. So the reason why I want to bring this up now is because this would potentially, impact any other items that we would have on the calendar, something that, maybe we weren't directly looking forward to, buying next year, so FY24 beforehand. But I do agree, and I've tossed it around with the team here as well. I agree that it is a vital resource, being that it has been used several times, and it's just something that has to eventually get purchased, and probably waiting too long. We could find ourselves in a position where we have a bunch of fancy wires and screens and stuff, but it doesn't work and somebody needs it. And I would hate to be, kind of out in the wind that way, or put anyone else out in the wind. Again, so just letting you know, that's a big ticket item. So that could impact project requests that you may have at the organizational level. So I will tell you that we are leaning on trying to get that into this next budget. Now, with that said, also there is another large ticket item or items on the horizon. You see where it says radio upgrade. I'm going to let Mike Gilbert kind of talk to this, as he's our kind of COMEL here across the region. Mike, do you want to kind of talk to where we're at and what we're looking to go towards?
Yeah. So I've been working with Chris Cochran, the IDPH comm specialist, with the updating to the new state template that's coming out. And with that, the goal that he has is to move us to the AES encryption that the state is requiring for STARCOM. The current encryption that IDPH is on is obsolete, and per STARCOM, we're not even supposed to be using it anymore. It's that obsolete.
Darren,
and
had responded to us.
So we are working on trying to upgrade the radios. Our current radios do not have the encryption that the state is wanting. And when I was talking with Phil about this, Phil had the recommendation to look at going to a multi-band radio, so that the HPP coordinators that are using a different band at the hospital could carry one radio and use it for hospital communication and STARCOM communication, so that it's not a STARCOM radio sitting on someone's desk that they're carrying it daily because they're using it for their communication through their hospital. And so this would be a one-for-one swap of the Motorola radios that you guys currently have, and giving you a new radio that you could use, that could be used for your daily hospital communication and for emergency communication on STARCOM. And then we would pull the Motorola's back and upgrade those to the current AES encryption requirements, and build fly kits out of them, so that if a hospital needed more radios for an incident that's going on, we could deploy those. And I've discussed this all with Chris Cochran, and he agrees that this is a good option if the coalition decides to go that way.
So when we do talk about having a single radio, again, we're talking about the actual handhelds that you have that will be able to talk on Starcom and also talk to EMS traffic. Is that right, Mike?
So it would be able to do Starcom, it would be able to do the Mercy channels, and if you're using a repeater in your hospital, it would be able to go on the repeater on your hospital too.
Thanks, Mike. So again, gonna look at definitely getting the telemetry set in, and we're open to a little more discussion with the region with regard to the radio upgrade. Because in some instances, because we're all not there yet, the state may say, oh, we're going to do this, or we're going to do something else. But again, these are big ticket items that could impact project requests. To be fair, we haven't, if I take this year as an example, I think we've received 4 project requests outside of stuff that my office or REMERT has put in. Those project requests probably are, on the order of less than $50,000 if I put maybe $60,000 if I put them all together. So we probably would have the money for that. We also may have an opportunity, so we may look at some partial upgrades if we can, because for those of you guys kind of recall, we are moving into a new warehouse. Hopefully we'll have the keys sometime next month or 2. They have to get some life safety code things fixed before we can actually move in and start renting there. But with that said, I've got money in our budget that we should have been using this year to pay for rent. So at least at this point, I've got 6 months worth of rent money that has not been used at all that I have to reapportion. So I have to do a budget revision for that. So we may try to direct some of these funds to one or both of these projects even this year. But we're definitely going to get the upgrade on the telemetry set. The radio upgrade, that may be something that we do a little bit over time. And we are open to all the hospitals and your thoughts and, with regard to that. But there are a few things that are going to be unavoidable, are going to be the AES encryption, which is going to be a requirement. So just keep that, in your back pocket. So we may put something up for another just full discussion, but again, just want to keep you situationally aware of really big ticket items that do impact the overall amount that we receive each year on the horizon. So, all right. Quick update on the Mercy or the medical response surge exercise. In our last meeting, we talked about targeting the first part of March during this time, our actual coalition meeting time, and using that, I give you all the reasons why we want to target there. But again, during the National Healthcare Preparedness Coalition Conference, in talking with Teresa, and I just wanted to clear it with her, is that because we took credit for our Mercy exercise during the Amazon warehouse response, we don't have to do one this year. So even while I do have it in our work plan, it was submitted to the state, we're not required to do one this year. And I've got clearance from IDPH that we don't have to do one again this fiscal year and in FY23. So it is a requirement for BP5 or FY24. So my thoughts is we shift that over to July. So that will be the first month of the new year or the new budget period. And we can get it done during 7/12. So the week after the 4th of July celebration week. Then after that, we can do the exact same. We'd be moving our regional meeting time frame to that time. So it wouldn't be on, because the week prior will be on the 5th on that Wednesday. And everything else would still stay the same. Unless someone has an objection and wants to really try to knock out a Mercy, because it's going to be pretty large, and try to do it in March. I believe this is probably the best way forward, and we can get, we'll have a little more time for planning. Maybe we can get a little more a few more folks to participate, a little more participation, and maybe add some complexity or a little bit more depth to the exercise. We already had some good depth, I believe, with this, but this would give us a little more time to add a little more depth to the exercise, so you guys can get more out of it. Any objections to moving that date? Okay, hearing none, then we'll just move forward with this as our target. And Tina, I do see you in the chat. You said you like the radio concept. Okay, great. Awesome. Hopefully other folks like that as well, because we're going to try to figure out a way to get that done, to make sure that we're able to communicate a little bit more. All right, coalition demographics. We'll go over this really quickly. Back in 2017, some of you guys might remember this little pie chart. There was a slide that I put together to talk about where we were at with regard to the coalition, and the number of personnel that were involved in the coalition or part of the coalition, and that's how the demographics were pretty much broken out. 38 personnel in that kind of pie shape. And as you can see, 71% of that were actual hospital representatives, folks who actually work in a hospital setting. So you can kind of see that it's a little larger here. And we had some stuff about goals and movement. I didn't put what those full goals were, but it was to expand that coalition membership. As of the end of 2023, this is what the coalition kind of looks like now, as far as folks who are engaged or actively engaged, quasi-actively engaged. We're at 147 personnel, and that's the total number of folks that are in Member Planet that are receiving communication, that participate one way or another, and across 13 different organization types. Still, the largest portion of that, where personnel are concerned, is the hospital, where we have 61 folks there. Now, I will say this, even sending out this morning, I think I got 5 failure notifications, which normally means someone, like I looked at a name, it was a STARS representative who no longer works for STARS. So, we have to pull them out of the database. But this is what your coalition kind of looks like today. We did make a few changes to help us calculate this better in the future. Lee and I went through. So if you do have folks that do sign up, their affiliation types is where we're capturing this data, because we do have in their organization and not affiliation, but like you can select multiple organizations. So let's say you work in a hospital, but you also work on an ambulance. You can say hospital and EMS, which we still want that kind of information, but your primary job and how you represent the coalition is what we'd like to have from you, and that's in the affiliation. So we've changed. If you go into your profile, you'll see your affiliation portion, which normally is like the gold, silver, platinum member thing. We just changed it to your primary organization. So if you think that that's been in error, please go ahead and change it. But we think we got that all right there. But we have made lots of progress over the last 4 to 5 years in expanding those who are a part of the coalition. So thank you to each of you guys who maintain consistency with the coalition. We only want to grow more. It's harder to manage, but I think it's a good thing when we get more folks involved and at least situationally aware of what's going on in the healthcare space in our coalition. So thank you to everybody there. So we'll knock out this last part. We're talking about training going forward and looking at BP5. So this is right out of our integrated preparedness plan. This is one of the things that Eric led, one of his projects that he had about a year ago. We had a few, at that time we called them the TEPW, Training Exercise Planning Workshops, but now the IPPW, Integrated Planning or Integrated Preparedness Planning Workshop. This is what we kind of had on the docket for FY24 starting July this year. As you guys kind of know, we are now able to move forward with training and a few other things like that that we weren't able to do before we had a signed grant. So again, as this year, we've done a lot more training before we had an assigned grant. We're able to do that now. So This is what we had on the docket. But some of those we actually knocked out this year. I'll give you one, like the DICO course that's there. Anything else on there that's that we probably did? I'm trying to look.
Bloodborne pathogens.
The bloodborne pathogens course we did. So with that, and as the pandemic is, slowing down, we've had folks reach out to us. Some of the, partners that we work with would bring in course, whether it's FEMA, TEKS, or what have you, because they paused a lot of the face-to-face stuff and they've started to do more. So we've got a few things here on the docket. I know that Lee's been working with, not saying that we're going to get all of these, but we'd like to get your feedback on some of these courses, like the pod planning course. The last time we held that here, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was May of 2015 or 2016 at SWIC, and I believe IDPH or Public Health. I don't know if it was EMA, but they led that course. But we held it down here at SWIC, which was actually a really good course. I know we've got a lot of lessons learned from that, so that may be something we want to jump back into. This year was supposed to be ASPR's year for the radiological surge annex. We did our tabletop, etc. So they're trying to focus on radiation. So that course is out there. It's a 3-day course. And you can see the other one right behind it, the per 370 as well. Community reception centers, again, another version of that. We are building more qualified instructors for decons we've talked about, but everyone needs good instructors across the region, especially in a hospital setting. Not everyone goes through the same rigors that other disciplines have out there in, whether it's fire officer 1 or 2, fire service, where they get a specific training, being able to teach. Sometimes it just comes as a course of what you did in your past, or just how good are you at instructing, but nobody gets any formal training. But we believe that helps in the healthcare setting. So it's a 3-day workshop that we think folks would be interested in. And then the training identification and preparedness planning workshop is a great planning workshop as well. So these are other things that we're looking at trying to bring in for BP5. If there's some that really hit home to you, and you definitely want them to come in, please let us know. Please let us know. We may put this in a survey form to pick, so we can kind of prioritize those. But we want you to be aware of these courses that we're looking at trying to get them in. So let us know what your thoughts are. You don't have to do that right now. You can always shoot myself or Lee an email saying, hey, this was a course that we wanted to get in at one point in time and couldn't, and we'd like to get it back in. So.
And be sure to include, hey, we're willing to host it, because that's the other problem we run into with a lot of this is space availability. So anything we can do there would be great. Indeed.
And we've got some great partners here that want to, I would say, I don't want to put Rick and Danielle on the spot, but I feel like they'd host every class if they could, because they're like, hey, free training, bring it in. We get our folks in. I'm sure and I would love everybody to take advantage of it. But we do understand that folks have to get in and around and get to places, and it's sometimes hard to get down from Jersey or all the way out in Fayette and come to the Metro East. I know Tina says she wants to go shopping every now and then, or at least that was Sue's thing. She'd make a day of it. When she came here, she would make a full day and be like, all right, I'm going to the mall, I'm going there, then I'm going to St. Louis, then I'm going home. So it wasn't always just business on those days. But so these are some of the things we're looking at. And again, your feedback is critical. Making sure that we get you guys what you want. And there may be something that's not listed here, but these are, again, some folks and some areas that are doing training now and have reached out to us. So we want to take advantage of that when we get the opportunity. Any thoughts, questions? Oh, go ahead, Lee.
I don't know if you've got this for a further slide as we go along, but for the first receiver decon operations trainings, we do have those scheduled throughout the year. If there's a facility that is needing to do that, please do shoot us an email so that we can try to pick the 6 different locations that we're going to look at and nail it down and get dates so we can get instructors and get that on the books early. We don't want to be waiting till the last minute, because it makes it impossible for us to actually get everything coordinated.
Indeed, and as you kind of look at what Lee's talking about, we have these plugged in every year. We want to make sure that we get these knocked out, but we want to make sure we're able to provide them to you as well. So being able to host some of this stuff is really good. And we've got some instructors that are chomping at the bit to start teaching and getting ready so they can, walk on their own, hopefully within a year or so. So, all right. Upcoming events. There you go. Again, we got the assisting individuals in crisis and group intervention. I think that's full at this point. The CISM application with children in February, strategic response to crisis in March. And then we do have the All Hazards Moulage course. Lee, do you want to talk about, or Eric want to talk about any of the time frames there? Because I know I got on here like April, May. Eric, do you want to talk about the time frame? I know you guys were trying to work on it.
Yeah, so right now, Alton Memorial has been gracious enough to be the hosting facility. So Aaron gave me 2 dates, one in March and one in April to look at. And I'm kind of leaning more now towards the April. So it should be the 3-4 time frame. And again, as you discussed, this is a person from with the background in moulage and doing stuff with motion picture companies, stuff like that, with special effects, and they're going to come out and teach a 2-day moulage course where equipment that you'll be using you get to keep, so that's also factored into the price. And one of the things that we're trying to do, not only within the facilities, but coalition-wide, is that when we do exercises and you really want to use role players, that you have a way of moulaging them in a fashion that allows some feedback where you don't have to stand over your paper triage and stuff like that, that you can actually use this as an awesome training tool. And again, it's only 2 days. So that's all I got on that, Phil.
And to piggyback on that, off of what Eric just said, one of the goals is to have this, just like we do with DCON, where we have subject matter experts in the coalition that can come together and help other facilities. It's not just an idea of you take the class just for your facility; it's so that you can help the other facilities, because we'll only have a limited number of slots available, and we want to make sure we share that knowledge and wealth as much as possible.
Indeed. Adding realism to any exercise, even when it's small, really helps out. I think when we did our kind of Secret Santa high consequence infectious disease exercise here at the hospitals, I'm just speaking locally for Shiloh and Belleville, Eric's daughter did a great job with putting together some realistic looking signs and symptoms. So it always helps get that nurse or somebody who's in triage, wherever it is, really into the exercise and kind of take it a little more seriously. So adding that depth really helps. And the summit, Greg, I always forget the exact date. I know it's the week of the 6th, right? Is it like 6th, 7th?
6, 7, 8, 9.
8.
Say it again.
I got June 6 to 8.
6, 7, okay. 6, 7, 8 of June. That's going on. So hopefully folks can attend. All folks can attend this year. So we see folks face to face again. And then the Mercy exercise in July. So hopefully we'll get that right off the ground. I think that'll be a really good one. And looking for a lot of support in that one. So all right. Floor is open. Questions, comments from around the region? All right, and I do see, okay, Tina, go ahead. I see your hand.
Do you know when information will be coming out about the summit, about reservations and things like that?
Definitely have to leave that to Eric and or Beth. I don't know.
Yeah, this is Beth. They're still working on a location. They originally said it would be in Normal, Bloomington Normal, but that didn't work out, so they had to do an RFP. So now they're telling us somewhere in central Illinois is what they're shooting for. As soon as we know something, we'll get something out to everybody.
Right. Thank you. And Eric Brandmeyer, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I'll be brief because in the interest of time, I just want something for the region to think about, for us to maybe to talk about in February. I know with a lot of the recent school shootings and public shootings, that is, we're a people in emergency preparedness that try and make lemonade out of lemons. So rescue task force training has really been amped up lately. I don't know if you saw it. It was on the news. Collinsville Fire Department and Police Department hosted one over the last couple of weeks of the year. And it got me and others to thinking about how difficult that is, not only from a scene perspective, as we start amping up our like some of our training, like for the MABUS 35 group, we're putting together a rescue task force response team type of stuff. But also made me think about from a hospital standpoint. We all know that when a mass shooting occurs, doesn't make a difference if you're a trauma center. If you're the closest hospital, that's who's getting the most people. So in the interest of, once again, I feel like I'm on a similar topic, load leveling. I would ask that all of the hospitals in the region start considering about what we can do as a region to better prepare for a no-notice mass casualty incident, such as an active shooter at a public place. That's it.
This is Mike Gilbert. So I know MABUS 32 is also doing a rescue task force response group. The problem is they are not including any of the EMS agencies in MABUS 32 because they are not, while they belong to the MABUS division, they don't include them in anything. And so we're running into an issue with the fact that MABUS excludes private and municipal-owned EMS services that aren't associated with fire departments.
That's unfortunate, Mike. But my point of the focus was more for the hospital specific, all of the hospitals, about because one of the things that, you know, like Phil pointed out, we did participate back when they had a tornado, Amazon tornado. But one of the things that some of us remember is that ultimately there were a number of hospitals that really never responded to their availability on that night when we didn't know exactly how many casualties we're going to have. Fortunately, we were blessed to only have a handful, but initial estimates were up and were from 50 to 100. And if we saw the same thing with a shooting and not have participation and transparency among the regional capabilities, that would be catastrophic. Because let's face it, we all say, well, you send them to a trauma center. Some of us have had traumatic incidents like on interstates over the years, where we quickly saw how quickly we filled up our friends over across the river with trauma call. So it's just something that I want for the hospitals to think about how we can better come up with a plan. If it has to be specific to rescue task force, I'm all on board with that. But mass casualty incident in general, as far as talking about our capabilities and better, once again, load leveling of critical patients in those very short notice instances.
Eric, I just think as we're working on that, we really need to focus up with our EMS partners, because that is a communication between the resource hospital and the service that's helping load balance. So, while we're working with the hospitals to do it, we need to work with our EMS partners so we make that communication path really easy for them.
No argument, Mike.
So it's Lee. I'm going to jump on this and bring back and say maybe, Phil, we need to redo the drill that we did a few years back with a EM resource notification and then a surprise visit to some of our facilities and inspect those EMS bags that are supposed to be ready for those mass casualty incidents to go out. Eric, I know you'll recall that exercise because you participated. So did I think St. Anthony's and a few others. That may be something worth rekindling. I agree that we've been blessed that we haven't had any of that in this region, but that's not to say it won't happen.
Indeed, definitely willing to entertain and do that. It's always a low kind of threat and pretty quick exercise, to be quite honest. But yeah, the information sharing portion again, still. So I hear you, Eric. It's still a need, and we got to be able to really get the information out and begin to set our hospitals up for success. Especially those who are not obviously on this side of the river, not trauma centers, and because everything ain't going west. Just it'll show up in a vehicle of opportunity somewhere there. We do have a question in the chat from Julie. Says, could we have, let me read this. Could we have any of the hospitals who have been involved in these incidents give us their hindsight and what they do now that they didn't know about before their incidents? Anyone care to share, as they say?
Well, Phil, and I may be just a little bit premature on this. So the incident commander for the Las Vegas shooting worked at that hospital there, is now an HSHS employee. She has agreed to share what she did and how she handled things and so forth. But again, she's just getting started with HSHS. So she knows we're going to ask her for some time. So I don't want to commit to anything with her right now, but I just do want to let you know we are going to ask. And I do feel that she is going to be willing. I just don't know a timeline or anything. She just, I think, is just getting started within this week or something. So more to come from that, but just keep in the back of the mind, I am going to be asking her to possibly do some presentations and so forth.
Thanks, Brad. That'd be great to share. Also, I'm just going through my phone now to taking a look at the all the agendas and all of the stuff that we participated with the again the National Healthcare Preparedness Coalition Conference. There was a gentleman who's a physician, an EMS fellow, who gave a talk about. He's up in Chicago. I'm just trying to remember what organization it was, but during the Evanston, or no, it wasn't Evanston. It was
Highland Park.
Highland Park.
It was that. Yeah. I'm trying to dig his information up now too.
Yeah. Who gave a really good. I appreciate. He gave a great perspective of how things went there as well, and how they communicated and the way things kind of worked there. But I would also. He seemed very open to providing some of that insight as well. So maybe we could have do a during one of our quarterlies, give him 45 minutes to provide that perspective to us as well, to kind of help bolster the point. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Chuck, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that I know Dan's replacement hasn't been picked yet, but something that we need to consider that's been blocked off between the data sharing is the ability for officers or incident commanders to have access to the live data coming from Missouri and Illinois for bed status query when they do that for incidents just as described. Because everybody's right, it would not take much for a system to be overwhelmed. We could have, something at NASCAR. We've seen that at other locations where, tires shot up into the crowd or something, God forbid, that would happen, but it doesn't have to be an active shooter incident. It could be any of our all hazards planning that we could do that could very really impact all of us. Amtrak coming down, and we did a training with them at one time of a possible train derailment up in Granite. How do we handle that? How do we get the information from EM Resource? Because EMS is largely not giving the bed status of how to balance for that triage officer that's trying to separate what hospitals send patients to. It would be beneficial to start working out some of those kinks. Just a bullet item to add.
Well said, Chuck. I think I know that, again, with the changes and where we're at today, and with regard to both sides of the river, it almost took, I'm not gonna say an act of Congress, but close to it, to get just get me access, and I think Lee access to send MCI notifications and have that bridge go, I can send that to the St. Louis area hospitals, like I can, and they should be able to, so those who, that work in the SMOC or what have you should be able to do the same. And I receive those notifications and then relay those, if need be. But it was pretty hard. I'm not gonna, I didn't think it would be that hard. Not that, I don't think from a technology standpoint was that hard. Who's that? I'm sorry.
Hey, I was just going to say, Phil, it's Greg. The other thing with Missouri's EM Resource, because I have access to it, when I look at St. Louis, I really don't understand what they do on a regular basis in EM Resource, or what they do, in an emergency situation. I remember being able to look at Kansas City and being able to follow what Kansas City does, but it really didn't seem like they input data like we do. And it would be good to know, as whether the information that St. Louis is using EM Resource would even be beneficial for us. It would be great to know how that works on their side.
I would agree. Go ahead, Lee.
I can speak to that to some degree. The St. Louis side they don't use EM Resource. I mean, they have it, they use it, but they don't use it. Their data is always stagnant. Even in an emergency, it's stagnant. And it's a challenge in and of itself. They've been making some changes. There's been discussion. I've sat on several of the calls through BJC for the Missouri Hospital Association, looking at going to a statewide template, kind of like what we've done with Illinois. But there's a lot of pushback, as I'm sure you can imagine, trying to make progress there. Truth be told, Greg, there's not really a great method. The best thing to do, and for us, it's unfortunate because there's not a solid process, is to reach out to the SMOC and see, since it's got representatives from all of the systems there who can see their internal bed systems. Other than that, their EM Resource, I wouldn't rely on it in a disaster, because it's going to be a week old typically. They don't do daily updates. They barely do weekly or biweekly updates on a lot of their data. Kansas City uses it more appropriately to like how we see it. But for St. Louis, it's more of just a dashboard of who's got what.
Yeah, I would just be concerned about wasting too much energy trying to get us information to EM Resource if it's not going to be beneficial, or if they use actually another system, you know, where that information is shared, that maybe that would be a better avenue. I just wasn't sure what they were doing.
For us, if we put out, meaning like you, me, Phil, who put out a message, who have the access to send it to St. Louis, it does go to the duty officers, and it does go to, or at least it's supposed to go, assuming they have their permission set appropriately, to the HPPs, the campuses. That should be a trigger point for them. Realistically, what we're going to end up doing is just like what happened during Amazon. I was on the phone with the SMOC, with all of them on a conference call. And, you know, this was prior to even knowing how many patients or anything other than what the initial radio dispatch was. And they were already looking at it, but EM Resource wasn't even a topic that came up. They wanted to see ours because it was useful, but they didn't have any interest in even touching their own.
Yeah, and that's been my point of contention with, you know, even when I asked for the access and, you know, if we're going to do it. I mean, now I can just tell you, not just because Sean's on here, but Sean Eisenhower, who again works BJC, when he gets those notifications, when I send them out, he hits my phone probably within 5 minutes or less. Hey, Phil, what do you need? What can I do? How can I help? So, you know, you have good folks over there who would like to use it more, but unfortunately at the organization level, it's not as ingrained as it is here in our region. But, you know, yeah. And to Greg's point, you know, how much effort do I get? Like I said, it was just to get where I got, which I consider a win. It still was a lot of effort just to be able to have the access. So, and I did find, and I don't know if Eric found it, but I did find those speakers, both the chief and the doc. So I think we can definitely reach out and see if we can get their perspective and kind of help guide us. You know, again, I just told to someone else, a wise man learns from another man's errors. So they did point out some things where they had great successes, but they were honest with themselves, and it give us some real lessons learned following the Highland Park shooting. So anyone else?
Just to that point, Phil, when we're talking about if we're going to try to bring in some speakers, I don't know if you were in that session at IAM, there was a gentleman from, I want to say it was DC, from DC Fire, that talked about the EMS response to all of their large scale incidents, because I mean, that's just a Monday for them. And some of what he brought up might actually be pertinent for us because of the type of coordination and planning that they have done. They have, you know, think of it in our case would be a region-wide plan that they use for just DC. I'm pretty sure I've still got his information on the IAM docket thing from Savannah.
Thanks for that. And Beth, I do see your comment as well. These would be good folks for the Preparedness Summit. The one thing I know it happens in the big summit, you know, in the summits, just like with their briefings, is that you get them during the General Assembly. Like we did it, I think ours was during lunch or breakfast during one of them, which is good, but you don't get some of the more targeted information. Like from this perspective, they give you a very overarching look because they're talking to a wide variety of folks. If we do get some folks speak with us, we can definitely try to get them to do something more targeted. So like in Lee's case, when he was talking, hey, let's do one for EMS and then, you know, have it, you know, really focused on something specific. But I do agree they'd be great for the summit. Just would like to get our guys or, you know, our region and folks here the opportunity to talk to them and say like, so what happened here and and get a little more granular. You know, everyone who's gone through these things, there's no right answer for a lot of this, and a lot of those times, but to get some reassurance, some understanding, and just to kind of take that back, I think it's worth a ton, in the end, especially when you can really speak to folks and ask questions. All right. I know we're well past our time. Just a last call. Anyone else? Anything important? If not, you could always shoot us an email. And if you if you can't send anything if you can't remember my email address, this is for everybody, or Lee's email address, so you don't have that, in Member Planet, all that information is there. You guys can look up folks through Member Planet. So if you need to look up that information, but if all that fails, you could always send it to info@swillhope.org. You will always be able to get in contact with us. So we're going to end this here. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for your time. And again, Happy New Year. And we will see you guys next month. Next month's meeting will be on the 1st. So take care.